We all know that Sukkot Zman Simchas Torah was a time of unbelievable giluyim by the Rebbe. From the Farbrengens, that the Rebbe was Farbrengen the Sukkah, to the Sichas that started later. Now, my memories go back to the time of the Farbrengens, where the Rebbe was Farbreng the second night of Sukkot, then the Rebbe was Farbreng during Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, and on Shabbos Chol HaMoed. I even remember one Farbrengen Shabbos Chol HaMoed in the Chafs when it was raining, and the Rebbe came in with the coat over his shoulders, but nobody felt the rain. Everybody was involved in the Farbrengen. There was just a tremendous amount of Geluyim during Sukkot. But as much as the Geluyim were there on Sukkot, it's Be'en Arech what happened, Shmini Atzeres, and especially Simchas Torah. We always knew that when the Rebbe speaks about the Yoshpizen, so the ninth night, which goes from the Baal Shem Tov, was the Rebbe's night. And the Giluyim that we saw on Simchas Torah was mamish. I'm not a maven in Chassidus, I'm not a maven on Atzmus and Mahus, but if you can say that you saw Atzmus and Mahus Begilu, if it's even Shaykh, because they say that it's only, Chassidus explains that it's only Shaykh Bisman from Yemei Mashiach, but we actually saw it on Simchas Torah. The Rebbe was Begilui, the Rebbe was open, there were no halamis v'estadim. The smile, the etzem of the Rebbe was connected with every chassid. And I have to say that every chassid felt as if they were the Ben Yachid, Shmini Atzeres, and especially Simchas Torah. I will just give you one, for instance. My earliest memory of Simchas Torah by the Rebbe was Simchas Torah Toshen Chav Daled. And it was a remarkable Simchas Torah. And as every Simchas Torah was remarkable. But I was standing up in the pyramids, and I decided to be a little bold, and I jumped off the pyramids onto the pyramids and onto the platform of the Rebbe, and I stood where my father would stand, right next to the Rebbe Stender. So I was a little child, so I was able to be sort of like hidden, but I was able to look up and see the Rebbe. And what was interesting is that when the Rebbe was facing Mizrach, there were tears flowing, and I still remember him using the handkerchief to wipe his tears, but when he turned around to the Elam, it was with such a smile. And that year in particular, the Rebbe was turned towards the Elam most of the time of the Hakafis, talking to chassidim, telling them to say L'chaim. The Geluyim that were there were just unbelievable. And it made a very big impression because it was the first Simchas Torah that I was able to absorb. And we never saw the Rebbe that way. It was Malchus, Reimemus, but at the same time, with such Geluyim and such love to each and every one of us. And I would say that Simchas Torah was this time that the Rebbe Pashat lifted us from the swamps. He lifted us from the Elam Haza. He lifted us from the Gashmias. He lifted us from our own Fakrochenkeit and our own Meditas Vagbolis, and allowed us to taste a little bit of, the Hisrachvus Ha'atzmi that the Rebbe had by himself. So I would say that Simchas Torah today as well is no different. It's the Rebbe's Oshpizen. And I would say that the Rebbe today is more with us, Yatim B'chayei, especially with those that are on Shlichus, that are not in 770. There's a famous story about Rabbi Baumgarten, who was the head Shliach in Argentina, that he once wanted to come for Rosh Hashanah, and he wrote to the Rebbe how much he yearns to be by the Rebbe's Tkiyas, and how he misses it, and he's far away, and he's envious of those that are Zeicha to be in the Rebbe's Daladamis. And the Rebbe answered him, I'm not giving you word for word, but he said, believe me, those that are on Shlichus are more with me by Tkiyas than those that are pushing around the Bima, which is an unbelievable statement of the etzem of the Rebbe is with the Shluchim. So when we are in our Chabad houses and we're dancing with the Mekuravim and we're trying to explain to them a little bit of a taste, like the story of the Ben Melech, that he was far away and he was drinking l'chaim to explain to them what Malchus is. That's the way we are, because there is nothing that could compare or come close to Simchas Torah in the presence of the Rebbe. The Gilui Eir, the Moed Ha'amiti that was there Begilui during Simchas Torah, just the whole tzir of Simchas Torah, and there's no illustration that can truly articulate it, because it was something that was so uplifting. And when the Rebbe would walk down with the Sefer Torah to Zakafe, and those that had the schus to be able to be close and kiss the Sefer Torah and have an interaction, it was just it lasted for the whole year. It was just unbelievable. So B'meila, what I would say is that as Shluchim, as we're getting ready now for Simchas Torah, for Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah, we need to know that the Rebbe is with us. We need to know that the Rebbe is in our Chabad house. The Rebbe is dancing with us. The Rebbe is uplifting us. All we have to do is open up our eyes and ears and open up our heart and really be niskasher, really connect. One other thing that I want to say about Simchas Torah is that Leil Simchas Torah was very well known that by the Farbrengen, before the Hakafis, first of all, there were Geluyim, Tsumim, unbelievably Geluyim in the Torah of the Rebbe. The way the Rebbe would explain the Ato Hareses, the deepest inyanim of chassidus that were revealed at that time. Secondly, in addition to that, the limud schus that the Rebbe that was writing a letter and how difficult it is to write a letter from there to here. I was sitting mamish right next to Rabbi by that Farbrengen, and I was able to see mamish. I was mamish under the Rebbe's eyes, so to speak, and it's indescribable how the Rebbe was using that moment to be melamed schus on us, on the simple people. So Leil Simchas Torah is the Rebbe's night in a very, very intensive way. And he relies on us, the Shluchim, to be able to fulfill that today. So it's not pshat of just remembering Zachrenis from Amol and having nostalgia and remembering Vasi Given, Visa Given, and how uplifting it was. What's more important is for us to realize that this is happening now. And it's happening now through us. And this is a huge responsibility that we have as Shluchim the Rebbe to open ourselves up to allow the Rebbe's Geluyim to come through us, and Ashreinu Matev Chalkeinu, Manoim Garaleinu, Mayofi Yerushaseinu, that we have that ability to do that. I will say that there was manim that the Rebbe actually revealed to the people there, Fashidni Geluyim, but at the same time, I want to finish with this point because that's to do with Shluchim. I remember there was always a delegation of the Israeli consulate that would come for the second night Simchas Torah. And unfortunately, they would bring recording devices. I don't know if the Rebbe was happy with it, because they would play sometimes some of the Nigunim the next night on Israeli radio. But I remember one time, it was the first time that several of the Bachrim took upon themselves to go on Talucha to a very distant neighborhood. I don't remember if it was Brighton Beach, something that it took a very, very long time. And by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe would always turn around to ask if they came back, if everybody came back. And this time, even though most of the people came back, but not everybody came back. So at the end, the Rebbe finished the Farbrengen, and he came down to Hakafis, and you saw that there was something bothering the Rebbe. He was constantly turning to my father, asking him if the Bachrim came back. And the Israeli consulate was asking the Rebbe, why is the Rebbe asking if they came back? And the Rebbe said, I want you to know that for these Bachrim that are going out to those shuls, this is the biggest Mesiras Nefesh for them, because their ratzon is to be here. Their machshava is here, but they know that the desire is that they should go to be Mesameach Yidden. So b'meileh, for them, it's the biggest Mesiras Nefesh. And I would want to see that they're back, so then my simcha could be complete. And Taka, when they came back, that's when the simcha started on a much bigger level. One other story that I remember that was very impactful was Tafshim Lamed, when unfortunately Rab Heshke Gansberg lost his wife, Rasha Gansberg. And that happened on the second day Sukkot. But on the night of Simchas Torah, Heshke Gansberg went to the Talucha just like he always went every year, and he took a little L'chaim. And he came back in the middle of the Farbrengen, and when the Rebbe finished the Sicha, he began a very freilich nigun. He began the nigun without the words of Vivad Yemu. And the Rebbe didn't look at him, but the Rebbe was listening intently. And I remember everybody was in shock. Here's Heshke Gansberg, he just lost his wife, and he had a little L'chaim, but the Simchas Yontif took him, and he was by the Rebbe. He started the nigun, and as soon as the Rebbe heard that nigun, the Rebbe tightened his gartel and jumped, if I can say jump, because I don't want to say it's not a derech hakovet, but I can say the Rebbe jumped out of his chair and began a rikud otzum v'niflo that lasted very long, both in quantity and in quality. It was so intense, and his eyes were closed, and tears were running out of his eyes. Like he was saying to the Eibishter, look at a Yid that is in such tzar, but because this is a pkuda, that he should go on taluch and he should be on shlichus, and to be besimcha, he's doing that. And the Rebbe pasha to him, he cherished it. So what I want to say is that each and every one of us, in whatever place we are, whatever challenges we have, whatever difficulties we have, and hopefully we don't have any, but we have to know Simchas Torah is a man of pritzas kol agdorim. And we are not on our own keach. The Rebbe is with us, dancing with us, inspiring us. Memela will be mamshich the hatzlach and the bracha from the Rebbe al kol hashana kula in a way that the Rebbe wants, and certainly it'll bring the ultimate bracha that the Rebbe wants, which is the Geula Shleimah, was also Zemit and the Rebbe, as Raleigh said before, which that is the greatest simcha of all. Thank you.